Dakota Johnson, a life, a career, and the hidden corners few ever see. In Hollywood, names often arrive before people do. Long before Dakota Johnson learned how to navigate a film set with confidence, her name already carried weight. It echoed through casting rooms, whispered across red carpets, and lingered in the shadows of expectations shaped by legacy. To the world, she was introduced not simply as Dakota, but as the daughter of, the granddaughter of, the next chapter of a famous lineage. Yet the real story of Dakota Johnson is not one of inheritance alone. It is a story of resistance, quiet courage, and a lifelong negotiation between visibility and privacy. Dakota Mae Johnson was born into a family where cameras were as common as dinner conversations. Her mother, Melanie Griffith, was a celebrated actress whose life unfolded under constant media scrutiny. Her father, Don Johnson, was a television icon. Her grandmother, Tippi Hedren, represented an earlier era of Hollywood glamour. From the outside, Dakota's path seemed predetermined, paved with opportunity and privilege. From the inside, it felt far less certain. As a child, Dakota moved fluidly between worlds. One moment she was surrounded by film crews and stylists, the next she was a quiet observer, absorbing the contradictions of a life lived in public. Fame was not an abstract concept to her. It was something she saw up close, its power, its instability, its cost. She watched relationships fracture under pressure, identities bend under expectation, and privacy dissolve into spectacle. These early observations planted a seed of skepticism that would later define her approach to celebrity. Her childhood was not without turbulence. The adults around her loved deeply but lived intensely. Emotional highs were followed by visible lows. Dakota learned early how to read rooms, how to adapt, how to stay emotionally agile. What many mistook for aloofness in her adult years was, in truth, a skill developed in youth. The ability to remain centered while chaos swirled nearby. Dakota's first brush with acting came at a young age, but it was never framed as destiny. She appeared in small roles, sometimes alongside her parents, sometimes alone. These experiences were exploratory rather than declarative. She was curious, not convinced. Acting felt less like a calling and more like a question she kept returning to. As a teenager, Dakota stepped away from the industry. She attended school, struggled with self-doubt, and faced periods of depression that she would later speak about openly. This chapter of her life remains one of the least sensationalized, perhaps because it offers no glamorous imagery. Yet it is foundational. During these years, Dakota confronted the quiet fear that she might never find a space where she belonged, neither fully inside nor outside the world she was born into. Her return to acting was not triumphant. It was tentative. She auditioned, was rejected, and auditioned again. Casting directors saw her name and made assumptions. Some expected instant polish. Others expected entitlement. Dakota arrived with neither. She arrived uncertain, determined, and deeply aware that nothing would be handed to her in the way people assumed. Early roles were modest. Independent films, supporting characters, parts that allowed her to observe rather than dominate. She gravitated toward stories that felt uncomfortable, characters who existed in emotional gray zones. Even then, her instinct leaned away from perfection and toward complexity. It was during this period that Dakota developed one of her defining traits, an unflinching relationship with vulnerability. She did not chase likability. She chased honesty. This choice would later polarize audiences, but it grounded her work in something authentic. Then came 50 Shades of Grey. Few moments in Dakota Johnson's career have been as transformative or as misunderstood as her casting as Anastasia Steele. To some, the role represented a shortcut to fame. To others, a controversial gamble. For Dakota, it was neither simple nor opportunistic. It was a calculated risk taken by a young actress still searching for her voice. The 50 Shades phenomenon altered her life overnight. Suddenly, her face was everywhere. Her body became public property. Her performance was dissected not just as acting, but as a moral statement. Interviews grew invasive. Questions blurred professional curiosity with personal entitlement. Dakota learned quickly that fame was no longer something happening around her. It was something happening to her. What many missed during this time was her quiet resilience. The role demanded emotional exposure under extreme scrutiny. She faced criticism not only for the content of the film, but for her perceived agency in choosing it. Yet she rarely responded defensively. Instead, she held her ground with calm humor and a refusal to apologize for her work. Behind the scenes, the experience was complicated. There were creative tensions, public speculation, and an ongoing narrative that sought to reduce her to a single character. Dakota absorbed it all while continuing to deliver performances that required emotional endurance few acknowledge. Her relationship with co-star Jamie Dornan became a focal point for public obsession. Rumors flourished, fueled by on-screen chemistry and off-screen appearances. Every glance was analyzed, every interaction framed as evidence of something hidden. Dakota, once again, found her inner world rewritten by strangers. The truth, however, was far less dramatic and far more human. What existed between them was trust forged under pressure, mutual respect, and shared vulnerability. They leaned on each other in an environment that often felt invasive. The intimacy audiences projected onto them belonged to their characters, not their lives. As the trilogy concluded, Dakota faced a defining crossroads. She could remain within the comfort of high-profile projects that guaranteed attention, or she could step into uncertainty. She chose the latter. Post 50 Shades, Dakota deliberately shifted her career trajectory. She sought out independent films, unconventional narratives, and directors who valued nuance over spectacle. Films like A Bigger Splash, Suspiria, and The Peanut Butter Falcon revealed a different dimension of her craft. Her performances became quieter, stranger, more internal. She allowed herself to disappear into roles that resisted easy interpretation. This phase of her career marked a reclaiming of authorship. She was no longer reacting to fame, she was shaping her relationship with it. She produced projects, supported emerging filmmakers, and used her platform selectively. Each choice felt intentional, even when it puzzled audiences expecting something more mainstream. Privately, Dakota became more protective of her personal life. She learned that openness did not require transparency. She spoke about mental health with honesty but avoided sensationalism. She acknowledged past struggles without turning them into brand narratives. This balance, rare in Hollywood, made her both admired and misunderstood. Romantic relationships remained a source of speculation, yet Dakota refused to perform them publicly. She rejected the idea that love needed documentation. In doing so, she challenged an industry built on exposure. Her resistance was subtle but firm. One of the least discussed aspects of Dakota Johnson's life is her deep empathy. Those who work with her often speak of her attentiveness, her generosity, her willingness to listen. These qualities rarely translate into headlines, but they shape her professional environment. She is known not as a diva, but as a collaborator. As she matured, Dakota's sense of identity solidified. She no longer felt the need to explain herself. Interviews became spaces for dry wit and thoughtful pauses. She allowed silence to exist without filling it. In a culture addicted to constant commentary, this restraint became a quiet form of power. Her relationship with her family evolved as well. Boundaries became clearer, love more grounded. She honored her lineage without being defined by it. She embraced gratitude without obligation. Today, Dakota Johnson exists in a rare space within Hollywood. She is famous, yet elusive. Visible, yet not fully accessible. Her career resists linear narratives. Her life defies simple categorization. The hidden corners of her story are not scandals or secrets, but moments of introspection, doubt, and deliberate choice. They are the nights she questioned her place in an industry that profits from certainty. The mornings she chose authenticity over approval. The years she spent learning that strength does not always announce itself. Dakota Johnson's journey is not a fairy tale, nor a cautionary tale. It is a human one, marked by privilege and pain, opportunity and resistance, visibility and withdrawal. Her story reminds us that behind every public figure exists a private person negotiating their own meaning. In the end, Dakota did not escape Hollywood's myths. She learned how to live alongside them without becoming one. And that, perhaps, is her greatest achievement. Not fame, not acclaim, but the quiet freedom to remain herself in a world that constantly asks her to be someone else.